turn your waste into value. So we are going to identify that waste, which will add value for you and your team to make progress.
Welcome to Process Pioneers, the show that takes a deep dive into the minds of decision makers, key influencers, and process experts who are pioneering the world of everything process. Welcome to the next episode of Process Pioneers. My name is Daniel Rayner. I'm the host of Process Pioneers. And in today's episode, I have the absolute privilege and pleasure in sitting down with Atique Muhammad. Now, Atique is an interventional process specialist. He is also the CEO and lead excellence advisor of Advantix Process Quality Consultants. Atique, thanks for joining me.
Hey, pleasure. Pleasure is all mine, and a wonderful day to you.
And I must ask the question, because I've never heard this term, interventional process specialist. Tell me and the audience, what does that actually mean?
It's very interesting. There is a story behind it, actually. I was visiting a hospital, and then I met a specialist called interventional cardiologist. And then I asked him, okay, I've heard cardiologists, cardiac surgeons, and cardiac specialists. And he says, what does it interventional mean? He says, I get into the picture when there is a need to improve things in your body. And I do not disrupt your system, or I do not come in when your system is disruptive. So I like the term. And for us process specialists, I think it's very appropriate because we don't want to go and disrupt any system. We go in as specialists to basically intervention where the need is.
Right.
So I felt that I should have this with my title so that it gives me that appropriate understanding that, okay, I am not somebody who's coming in to shuffle in your organization or disrupt your organization, your processes, or your functions. I'm here to make an improvement, and I'm here to work only on the parts where it is needed. So that's how that interventional process specialist came into my mind, and then that's how it's working.
Fantastic. I love it. So when did you first stumble into the whole world of process? Is that story part of the beginning of your process journey, or is that more recent? Not very beginning. I'm ironically graduate from the computer science side of it. And I did my it's called the Information Systems, Business Information Systems BS, where there is an element of business and then, processes and all. And when you talk about IT structures, it's all about processes again. So there was a kind of a linkage. And then when I started working with the ISO systems, the quality management systems, it was all about process-based approach. And it starts with that PDCA and then all that stuff. However, along with my career, about 7, 8, 9 years, I was just working on the systems, developing, writing SOPs and stuff. And then I realized that there's a great need to improve what we set up. Rather than just we set up and then keep move forward and set up and move forward and set up and move forward. So what we are setting up, we are not getting the right output of it. So having that right output, you need to improve those processes first so that you can, grow organically. So from there, I had that interest of working on the processes. I was kind of being intrigued. And then I did a specialization course for certified process professionals. Once I did that, I realized that there is a lot more depth into process management rather than just putting flow charts and, giving directions and stuff. So from there, it started working on, and then I started working on the BPMs, and then a little bit of self-learning, a little bit of trainings, and then business excellence. So business excellence is all about, again, making things even to the better level. Where you can benchmark them. And it all starts with the ground reality of process management. Yes, right. Yeah. And amongst all of the organizations that you've done work with and work for, when you step foot into that organization, what are they doing well and what aren't they doing well when it comes to process? Obviously, they call you in because there must be they've either identified an opportunity, but they need the necessary expertise to come in, or they're attempting it themselves and they're just not getting the value that they initially had hoped for. What are the mistakes, or generally what's tripping organizations up?
Yeah. Okay. Now, when we talk about where I'm sitting, basically I'm sitting in Dubai, and then we have a mixed kind of a environment here. We have got many nationalities who are into ACT, basically in businesses, in production, in trading and all. So there are many disciplines where we are, and then those disciplines have association with certain nationalities as well. So a lot depends on how that business is being run. If it's a family-owned business run, if it's a corporation, or if it's a joint venture, or if there is a bunch of friends who have come together and then they started working along. So a lot goes back to the history of the organization, how it was developed. What we see is the multinationals, the big corporations, they have those things embedded into their system from the beginning, and they work on the improvements. But when you go on to family-owned businesses or individual startups or SMEs, they are more or less working on the routine basis. Mm-hmm. So they lack that structure and the basics of process management. A lot of times when we are called in, very rarely we are called in as process specialists. We are called in as troubleshooters. We are stuck at this point, and we are not able to solve this problem. And those problems are primarily in sales, in operations, in production. And a lot of times people don't know how to handle customers, and they are losing customers. So there are no customer retention. So when we go in, so the first thing and foremost we see is what kind of structures do you have? What kind of processes do you have? Do you have any formal policy structure? Do you have governance model? So when we see all these things missing, we know that, okay, it's something where we have to start from scratch. And honestly, it's a little unfortunate when we sit with the business owners and they say, oh, I don't know, I just had some money and then I thought of starting up something, and this was the happening thing, and I started working, and people came along, and then it got built up and stuff. So what I feel is that this is another one of the areas where we work with is SMEs and startups. Mm-hmm. I personally preferably work with startups and SMEs so that we can help them have that base, the structure at the beginning, so that when they build up on that structure, it's a lot stronger and sustainable, basically.
Yes. Okay. And is this something that right from the start of an organization, when it's still the core founding team, one person, two people, maybe a team up to a team of 10 plus, that it's their responsibility and their role to understand and manage their processes, have them documented in some way, and that's going to help with their scalability? Or what are the other drivers that's motivating them to have an understanding of their processes?
Yes, ideally it is the very start, the beginning. The founder itself has to have certain structure to start with. For him, probably the vision, the mission, the values, these are very important to set up for the people to come in so that everybody is aligned. And then when he's bringing in specialists, if he has the people who are coming in the organization under those values or accepting those values, then it's easy for them to be aligned to develop the structure itself. Right. So once you have your mission, values, your policies are solid and struck. I mean, they need not to be the best in the world. They need to be appropriate for your operations. And this is another element. What we see is a lot of people do copy a lot of things from the Google, from let's say similar companies. They look at a profile of, let's say, for example, GE. They look at the profile of McDonnell Douglas, and they just get impressed with those words, the fancy words, and then they pick those fancy words and then make a policy out of it or a mission statement. So what we recommend them is to be more realistic.
Right.
And when you are doing, at least when you're developing your business model, you should look into your governance. You should look into your the need. There is one very important analysis you should do is the pastel. I'm sure you know about it, but unfortunately, many people miss that. Once you've done your pastel, you know what risks are there for you to handle. And then from there, it's easy to build up. So yes, primarily, it's very important from the beginning itself. But then ideally speaking, when you have your core team at the top level, 3 to 4 people, they should sit down together if there is none to develop all that and then put up a base. And I mean, in simple terms, it's very easy to build a one-story house. But when you want to build a tower of 20, 30, 40 floors, you need to go deeper into the ground to have a solid structure and then base so that it does not get unstable. So this is how it is. It's if your vision is longer enough, you need to have that strength in your base. And if you're just running a business, okay, I have some investment, I want to run for 2-3 years and then sort of dispose off, then it's fine. So it's a disposable business. But then if you're looking at a long-term business, you have to have that strong structure at the base.
Right. And for those organisations that have already been in operation for a while or a number of years, a number of decades even, and then they're very large, but maybe they've because of the scale, because of their growth, because of the number of people, processes haven't been well maintained or managed. It's kind of been people in the same role for the last 5, 10, 15 years, and they've just been doing the same tasks. Where do you start when you're at that sort of scale, at that sort of level? Because I know there are many organisations at that point where they're so big, but they don't have any sort of baseline, no understanding to improve upon and to optimize their existing or some would say old and outdated processes. Where do you start when you're an organization so big and there are so many processes?
Wow, that's a challenge actually, because that's a huge challenge. Reason being, first of all, people are used to those routines for 10, 15 years, as you say, and I've had that experience. And it's like it's embedded into them that this is how we do and this is how it works. And they are very resistant to change. And it's not easy for them to accept change. And second thing, they look at us as invaders.
Right.
I'm so sorry to use the word, but that's how they look at us. We are coming to invade something. But now, see, the first and foremost, we have to have the top management on board. And the message has to go from the top management to the second tier that this is what we are looking at. We are not here. That is the term. That's why you see my term interventionalist, because we are not here to disrupt your system. We are here to see how things can be better for you rather than anybody else. Now, this is how they have to find value. There is another term which I use when I go into organization. I say, turn your waste into value. So we are going to identify that waste, which will add value for you and your team to make progress. So nobody is denying to have progress. Nobody wants to have more. Nobody wants to deny more profits. Nobody wants to deny more, let's say, sustainability. So all those things we basically work with them to see where their interests are. And then again, there is a lot. It depends a lot on their personal standing, because a lot of people are there in those positions for 10, 15 years. They take those positions as their own created babies.
Right.
And they have a sentimental value with that. And once I actually had an incident, this person was literally crying and saying that this is my baby, please don't touch it. Because it was his legacy. He was about to retire in 2-3 years. And he says, if you destroy my legacy before I retire, what is there for me to talk about after that? I said, no, we are not going to destroy anything. You still will be there, and it will be same as it is. It's just that it will be a little improved. So I said, why wouldn't you want your child or your son to be masters rather than bachelors? And that kind of clicked on him. Oh, yeah. I do want to have him, let's say. So in that sense, we worked with him. But then, yes, people do have those sentimental touch values, and they are resistant to change. So it takes a little longer, but eventually when they see the benefit or the value, as I said, it does work. And I haven't seen anyone who doesn't accept. At least people accept. Now, if they don't want to carry on with it, is another scenario. Or if they don't see that happening in the near future, it's another scenario. But they do accept that, okay, this gap or this, let's say, scenario does exist where we can improve and we can find solutions. So yeah.
Great. No, that's fantastic. And obviously getting people on board with changes that can be a huge hurdle. But I like that approach. When you painted that picture of it being a child or being their baby. Of course, any parent or any good parent would want their child to improve and to grow. So I think that's a great way to articulate it. So obviously with process improvement and process optimization, that can look as small as a tiny tweak to a project. Mm-hmm. It can be improving one step or one task in an activity to be mildly better. It could look like an entire process overhaul of an end-to-end process to re-innovate how the organization delivers value. What's been one of the biggest wins that you've experienced, or the biggest, attempts at process improvement and optimization, and it's delivered the most significant value to the organization? Do you have an example you can share with us?
I have a couple of examples. Probably not at a very big scale, but there was one organization we worked a couple of years back where they were into construction, and then they were manufacturing or kind of developing the air conditioning ducts in-house. So they would install those ducts, and then a lot of the times there was a lot of variation when they built in the factory, and then they bring it onto the site, and then a lot was being sort of altered in sizes. So it was not the problem of the drawings; it was not problem of the manufacturing. The issue was that on-site conditions change, and they were not communicated on the right times to the production, and thus they had the drawings, and then they were developing based on the drawings. And then we realized that the communication between the site and the factory, in the process, there was a gap of another two points. So the communication will come from the site to the head office. From the head office, it will go back to the estimation. And then from the estimation, it will go back to the projects. And the projects will then communicate to the production. And by that time, the production was over. So they say, okay, take it and then do it inside. So we realized that why are you doing these two steps of communication? Why is it coming back to the head office? Or it's coming back to the head office so that the estimation can go back and then work on their numbers. And then once they're finalized, whether it is under the budget or not, I said, come on. What we realized was the waste they were producing from those adjustments on the site was 3 times more than the savings what they were doing in the head office by letting it go to the estimation.
Right.
And eventually, once we removed these 2 steps, for the information to go, we said, okay, let the information go simultaneously. Let the information go there, that these are the adjustments on the site, and let them work along the side. There is no harm in that. And you wouldn't believe, they saved 28% of that process from there. And that was their savings, 28%. From that point until the end of the project, only about 3.5, 4 months. And that project was running for 1.5 years. And I mean, I told them, okay, go back and calculate. So let's say for about a year, they were doing this, and almost about 6 to 7 months, they had wasted at least that 28%.
Yeah, that's huge.
It's waste. And that's your construction cost, or that's your process cost.
Yeah.
And I'm just telling about the materials. What about the people, the transportation, the time of the people consumed in development, in production? There was a term we used to apply in one of my ex-organizations, cost of poor quality. So the cost of poor quality is not only the end cost, it is that redoing cost, which is complete process.
Yes, right.
So it's almost 3 times the process cost, which will cost you for just one step of not verifying or not sending the right information to the point where it is needed first.
Right, okay.
They were sending the information, but not when it is needed or where it is needed first. So with a single step of simultaneously sharing the information could save 28%.
Yeah, right.
And it's part of the process only. And it's a kind of a business rule that you have to send it there first. Somebody said it on the top, send me here first. And that became a business rule. That business rule is part of the process. And that costed them 28%.
Yeah, right. Now, there are people that are listening to this episode that they're in organizations where they haven't got that buy-in from senior leadership yet, but they understand the value and the importance of optimizing their processes. Is the approach that you would take when trying to get this sponsorship and buy-in, would you be taking examples like this and pitching that forward? Or how do you get buy-in? Is it taking these case studies forward? Is it trying to understand what's keeping them awake at night? How do you approach senior leadership regardless of the organization that they're currently in?
What my approach is, I basically first sit with because normally when they come to us or come to me is, we are stuck with this, or we have this issue which we cannot resolve. So I said, okay, let me understand the issue first, because 50% of the problem solution is within the problem understanding. And when I sit with them, I listen to their query, I listen to their pain. What is it causing them? And then I physically visit and see the whole activity or the process where their concern is. Not many times, but sometimes we do have certain interrelated processes with that process. And the root cause is somewhere there, which is not in their scope of, let's say, operations.
Right.
And it's kind of an input which is coming from there, and it's causing pain here. And then it happens many times. So it's very, very important to understand the interrelation between the processes in the organization, and then see where the input is coming in and what kind of valuable input is coming in. Is it the realistic, let's say, value which comes in, which is required for this process to perform to its optimized, let's say, productivity? Or is it just a standard information which comes in, which is not filtered, which is not, let's say, to the best of its value? And that is causing. And then in that case, in one of the cases, it was the value which was coming in, which was not, let's say, up to the mark. And rather than solving here, we asked that who is the business owner or the process owner of that, let's say, section of the work. And we met with him, we had a discussion with him, and we asked him that if we sort of tweak a little bit here, would it be any sort of trouble for him, or would it be convenient for him? And he was a pretty nice guy. He understood that, okay, this could add value to the next level. And he said, okay, there's no harm in trying. Now, he didn't buy it. He said, there's no harm in trying. and we tried. We tried for 1 week. We saw a change remarkable here. So again, case to case, the very first thing I would listen to the problem. Very second thing, I would go and then visually see the process happening, no matter how huge it is, no matter how small it is. I can give you another example later on. And then after that, we sit with the process owners and see, okay, this is what we understood. And then there is a question and answer session where we go little deeper and then realize, okay, this is where the root cause is. We do a lot of, we use tools. We use Fishbone, we use Pareto and all those things. And then we identify, okay, this is where the root cause is. And then from that point, we start working upwards. And then slowly, again, there's nothing rapid.
Yes.
Process optimization, process improvements are never rapid.
Yes.
They give you results in a certain time period, but then they reflect change immediately. They do reflect change. So once that change is reflected, then from there, it's a positive sign for us that, okay, there is a change. And then we observe the change, whether it is going to the right direction or not. And then over the period of, let's say, weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, it reflects the results. And that is where the success is all about.
Yeah, okay. And over the last 2 years, we've obviously seen a lot of turbulence in the business landscape. Obviously, a lot has been given a good shake-up and forced organisations to understand their processes and what's going on and what's actually delivering value and what do we need to cut to create more of a lean machine. But how have you seen process play a vital part in the last couple of years?
95% of the cases which came through last 2 years, they were all about sales growth. We have lost our sales. We want to improve our sales. There is no sales. And we did understand that it's happening all across. Now, accepting that there are certain exceptional industries which have grown over the period, especially e-commerce, that is understandable. But on ground, people were facing challenges in sales. And then, of course, it's all related with the sales, then the production and the growth and all that is part and parcel of it. And then, of course, when your expenses are more, you want to reduce. And the first area where you want to hit is salaries.
Yes, right.
Reduce the salaries. So first they reduce the salaries and then they end up reducing people. So it's been basically, let's say, a challenge for everyone. We also had to go through certain, let's say, changes, but then we did not reduce staff. We reduced our expenses. Right. So we came into a smaller office. We basically did not renew our commercial side of it. We did not do any social media marketing campaigns as such. Why? Because when people are at home, people are at home. So in that sense, it's better to connect with them because Zoom was on and it was available for everybody and people were working remotely. So it was easy to connect. But the advantage was initially we were exposed to the local market. Now, let's say during that period only, I think I got connected with process pioneers working through LinkedIn. And then from there, we communicated and all. So this is how it has worked out for people to connect outside their, or let's say beyond their boundaries. However, coming back to the local industry, many people have worked on the strategies and rather on strategies than processes. Reason being because to work on the processes, they need to have basically people working in there or have business running in there. So the focus was on improving the sales. So primarily, I have worked with at least about 30 odd organizations during this period. And as I said, 95% was on sales. So we worked on sales funnel. We worked on their sales process. We worked on their sales strategy. We worked on the stages of the funnel. and then qualifying the leads and stuff. So there was a little bit of a hint with a marketing strategy, and also there we had a specialist coming in. There was an industry where we needed to work with somebody into IT industry because they were concentrating on e-commerce. So we brought in an IT specialist to work on the e-commerce part of it. So this is how we and then now one element here is the collaboration. Because it was certain areas which were beyond our scope. So we had those collaborations. We had people around us who could sort of work with us and then work as a team. So it was all about sales in the last 2 years, if I say so. And now things are moving forward and they're a little better. And recently I had a query where it's a production unit and they are expanding into another city and then in another country. And they want us to come in and then basically, lay down all the processes. They are actually trying to improve here and benchmark.
Yes, right.
So they can replicate the thing. One other area which I felt was very strong, a lot of people were trying to sell their businesses out.
Okay.
And because they were selling them out, they wanted, because once you sell it out, the first question is, where is your business model? Or what was your business model?
Right.
And for that, they need to have those formal, let's say, information. So for that, people were interested to basically lay down all the policies, structures, procedures, and so that we can, they are like sort of scalable kind of and sellable position. So there we worked 2 projects, and that's what the trend was that people were looking into getting those things done so that they are, sort of in this sellable scale. And then, so overall, if I look at it, it was a win-win situation because it opened, let's say, global markets. And locally, we were able to manage and still things were moving forward. I would definitely like to mention here the steps taken from the government side in UAE were very positive and then very constructive. They had the lockdowns when it was needed, and then they opened up when it was secured. We have the highest rate of vaccination in the world, 98.some%, 98.7, I think, the highest rate of vaccinations in the world. And we are the only country which had opened its tourism before anybody else. We have held the Expo 2020, if you see, successfully for 6 months. And during pandemic, it was all worked out. The construction was still being done and all that. And we had over 20 million visitors. So considering that, I think everything was fine at the end of the day.
That's a good way to put it. And when you're looking to the future now of the process management landscape, obviously, as you've been describing, the last 2 years have been very turbulent for a lot of organisations, and it's helped organisations have been forced to adapt more or less. But when you now look to the future, look to the next 2, 3, 5 years' time, we've obviously got technologies coming out. They've been out for some time now, but you've got robotic process automation. A lot of companies are diving into that. You've got process mining. A lot of companies are diving into that. When you look at the next 2, 3, 5 years, even 10 years, what sort of trends are you expecting, or what does the future of business process management look like?
See, let's put it this way. Eventually, people will have to adopt. Reason being because this is the only way forward for you. May it be, let's say, a startup, or it's an organization with 5 to 10 years or 10 to 15 years in operations. You have to have these, let's say, professional approaches applied. You have to have the BPM. Automation does not work without BPM. AI does not work without BPM. You have to have the base of BPM where everything stands up and then grows. So looking into the future of BPM, I say it's very progressive and then very strong. However, people might not apply as a whole. They might apply in a certain area of the business, or they might apply in a certain scope of business. But if you look at it, eventually they will have to adopt. If not 5 years, maybe another 2 more years, maybe another 3 more years. So 5 to 10 years is the time. Eventually, it has to come, and BPM has a very strong presence or a future which is coming next, and it has to be adopted. The What we can do as professionals is that we create awareness as much as we can. Now, I do pitch myself to organizations for process improvements, optimization. But then more than that, I create an awareness in general that how things can be better for you, not only in your businesses, but in your lives as well, if you are structured.
Right.
It's very simple. Look at the clock. We have clocks for what? To manage time. Mm-hmm. Now, managing time doesn't mean that you keep following the clock. Managing the time is to have the right value in that right span of time, which is there around the day. Yeah?
Yeah.
You cannot go to school 2 a.m. You have to go to school, let's say, between 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Mm. But if you say, no, I want to go 9 p.m. to 2 a.m., could you do that?
No.
Technically speaking, it's the same clock.
Right.
It's the same time, but then it's not the appropriate time.
Right.
So that's where the structure is. So BPM is also the same thing. It might be possible, but is it appropriate for you?
Right. Okay.
So not every tool is applicable everywhere. A lot of people, when they ask me, what do you do? And I talk about process management. Oh, the Lean Six Sigma. I said, yes, but it doesn't apply everywhere. Six Sigma is for organizations where they are huge. For a startup, Six Sigma means nothing.
Right.
It's basically, it has no value. Lean management with 2 people in the organization has no value.
Right.
You understand my point? So it depends a lot how people still adopt it. And then it's the lack of awareness a little bit to a certain point. So what we need to make sure is that the awareness is better. People are more aware and they rightly understand what BPM is for them and how it can benefit them. May it be artificial intelligence, may it be Generation 4 industrial changes. All those things are for business excellence. You talk about EFQM, you talk about, Malcolm Baldrige. All those are applicable to certain sectors of the industries and certain sizes of the organization. It does not apply everywhere. And that's what I think we need to work on and emphasize. That way we can have a little more practical approach, and that again, interventional application of the system rather than applying across the table the same way.
That's fantastic. That's great. Well, Atique, obviously there's only a limited number of topics we can sort of scrape the surface of in a 40-minute conversation. But for those people that are listening, that you've piqued their interest, you've challenged their thinking, they're going to walk away from listening to this episode and start to think about, well, we need to do something here because we don't have that baseline. We don't have that place from which we can grow upon. We don't have process management set in place. Where do they go to learn more? Where do they go to learn the next steps? Should they be reading material online? Should they be connecting with different process specialists? How does someone go from where they are now? They've listened to this podcast, but they want to go to the next step now.
Yeah. Let me start with one story. I was with someone say about 6 months back during the pandemic, and this guy, the first meeting interaction, he had called us he had some issues, So with the sales process and all. And he said, I want to improve my sales. Sales are going down and all. I said, okay, let's have a meeting. And the very first thing after the introduction, he says, this is my business and I have been running it for last 25 years and nobody knows my business better than me. So, but I don't know how to solve this. What do you think my answer would be? I said, yes, wonderful. I mean, you've been successful so far. 25 years is a great time. And I really admire your ability to sort of take it along 25 years. However, in your words, there is a problem which is not at a position, you're not at a position to solve. So that's why you're looking outside. Now, it's very common and normal to be known to your own system well, because you are the one who have created it and you are the one who's running it. But a specialist or a person who is with a naked eye can come and pick a point which is kind of oversighted by you. So when you are in a business, when you are in a system, you always need somebody from outside to come in and look at those, let's say, points where the gap is or where the waste is. And right. That waste and gap can be converted into value. All the big names, you name any brand, you name LG, you name Toyota, you name McDonnell Douglas, you name HP, you name Samsung. They all have those specialists who are not in the organization, but on the payroll of the organization, which come from outside.
Right.
So that is where the real optimization is, the real identification of those gaps and then those loopholes are. And those people are there. Their job is just to find those waste gaps so that they can convert them into value.
Yes, right.
And for any businessman, for everyone who is listening to me or having a challenge in their organization, it could be a challenge with manpower. It could be a challenge with your material sourcing. It could be a challenge with retaining the customers. It could be any challenge. For every challenge, you have a specialist in the world somewhere.
Mm.
Yeah, there are people. There are many people around me here. I mean, I know at hundreds of people who are specialized in my industry, in my discipline, and the people around in other disciplines. I have a team of about 15, 16 people. Sales, marketing, operations, supply chain, logistics, HR policy structures, HR modeling. And then we have people working with as coaches, with teams, with individuals, psychologically. So work-life balance. All these are part of operations and businesses. Right. And they're very much real. And especially during the pandemic, everybody has faced challenges in all the different disciplines of the organization. So we are all here to help. Of course, there is a commercial element added to it. But eventually, just consider the waste to value proposition. If that waste can be converted into a value to your organization, where you would end up. Yes. And if you are not converting that waste into value, how much you're adding up into the waste.
Yes, right.
And eventually it's the cost of poor quality, which you are paying from your pocket rather than gaining the profits.
That's right.
So, yeah, and then it's very important. And then we humans, we have that tendency of accepting and rejecting.
Yes,
now,
right.
We accept only when we are on board with that value. And we reject when we are not on board in that value.
Right.
So overall, if you look at a system, even in terms of BPM, we need professionals, we need the human factor to make that BPM work.
Right. Okay.
A lot of people say automation is coming in. And then I said, even if the automation is coming in, the human factor remains the same. Automation cannot make decisions. To make the right decisions at the right time for that right value, you need a human being there.
Yeah.
And for that, you need the right person at the right time for the right job.
Well, I guess on that note, how can people get in touch with you moving forward if they do have those questions?
You can share my LinkedIn profile in the bio in the comments, or probably you can tag me, and then from there they can connect me. I have my details on the LinkedIn, and that's the best way to connect at the moment in the world. LinkedIn is the best, I think, probably professional platform around. And I've been very sort of fortunate to be getting connected through LinkedIn, and then many people approach, and then it's successful as well. So that's the best way. LinkedIn is the best way.
That's fantastic. That's good. Well, for anyone listening, please connect with Atique on LinkedIn. He'd love to answer any questions that you may have following on from this conversation. But Atique, I just want to thank you for sitting down with me today. I've certainly been gleaning a lot from you. I've been taking a lot of notes here, and I'm sure the audience has as well. So it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And it's all my pleasure. Whatever we can share back and give back to the society. I mean, ultimately, somebody should benefit from this. And if somebody can add value from this session itself, it'll be great honor. Yeah. Thank you very much, Daniel, for the opportunity. And I definitely would love to have another session and talk in a little bit detail. I mean, there are many stories I can share with, because we interact with people on daily basis. And and then it helps around, actually.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Well, we'll make that happen.
Sure. Thank you so very much again. And then you're doing a wonderful job, I must say, in Process Pioneers. I've been listening to your podcasts and interviews. I'm really, really, really blessed to have this information. There are a lot of professionals who are adding value to the system as well. So you're doing a great job. Thank you very much for that as well. Yeah.